Echo, 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 echo. Today. I consider myself. Hopefully we're not echoing anymore. We're back. DC, what's going on? We've done our mushrooms, and now we're just gonna wait for them to kick in. Apparently.
Yeah, mine have already been kicking in. It's a good Friday, doing some hard drugs over here in Minnesota, and should be a fun show. I'm sure I'll have lots of hot takes.
That's I'm looking forward to that. It will make for a good show. Maybe not the most helpful. We're not exactly gonna make the best of lineups, the best of suggestions, but sure, entertaining. And that's what we aim for. And that's all that matters. We've lost like 15 minutes or so we can't talk too much nonsense apparently because it is a full slate tonight. There is 15 games. We have a game in Coors Field. We have your love fest that is Steven Strasburg. That's going to take up a good 12 minutes of this show.
Oh yeah.
So I suppose we might as well just get right into it. Starting pitchers, we're going to be working mainly off the draft street prices. Steven Strasburg, it's on a tee for you, and go.
Yeah, my boy Steven Strasburg on the hill today, facing the Atlanta Braves, who enjoy the strikeout. So should be a good day for Strasburg. Looking at the Braves lineup, I'm seeing a lot of strikeouts in there, but no Dan Uggla, which is disappointing. He does have a good BVP off Strasburg. I was hoping he'd be in there. Maybe the Braves would fall for it, and that'd be like 4 more strikeouts for Strasburg. Not the case. Nevertheless, pretty high on Strasburg today. I think he's my number one pitcher. I think you could make a case for price. Would you like to make that case?
No, because Strasburg is like 2K cheaper, so I'm not making that case for Draft Street. On a site like FanDuel, you can make the case just because I think Price is in a better spot for the win. And they're the same price over there in FanDuel, but I think Strasburg is pretty clear-cut the guy on Draft Street, the first guy you want to throw in there. Obviously, on Draft Street, you got to roster 2, maybe 3 starting pitchers. And you mentioned no Dan Uggla, and you said maybe the Braves didn't fall for it. Tommy G, would he have fallen for it? I bet he would have. Mr. BVP himself.
Oh, definitely. He would have been all over the Uggla train today.
Yeah, absolutely. He would have a nice negative 2.25 on Draft Street. And no Justin Upton either, because I believe he's still dizzy. So he's out of the lineup. He's out of the lineup as well. So it makes it a little bit less daunting. Okay, so you still feel free to ogle more about Steven Strasburg if you like. We can make room. We can squeeze other spots in the show. But just pretty much you're rolling out Steven Strasburg as I cannot. That's like a tongue twister of some sort.
Strasburg. There you go.
I'm sorry. I apologize to you and the Strasburg family. He's your top pitcher. That's it. No conversation, correct?
Yeah, he's my top guy. I think you'll see him be the most popular pick, especially over at Draft Street. Although, we'll get to the hitters later, and there are some games out west tonight that might have a lot of runs scored. You talk about sites, including Draft Street, but, FanDuel, DraftKings. If you roster Strasburg, it's going to be hard to get in, these Colorado bats, the Milwaukee bats, maybe the Angels, some guys that are in great situations to have big nights. So I think there are some other pitchers that are cheaper that are worth discussing that, could have good games too. And I wouldn't hate anyone for, trying to save a starting pitcher and get in a lot of the top hitters, because there are some guys who should have huge nights tonight.
Yeah, that leads me into a conversation. Me and Pepsi were talking earlier today. Yes, I was cheating on you. I actually talked to other Roto-Grinders hosts.
What?
I apologize. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. There's flowers coming in the mail. Don't worry about it. We're good to go. But so here's the question: what is a scarier fade? Especially, I think it probably takes place better on a FanDuel site. On Draft Street, you have 2 or 3 pitchers. You can kind of work around this, or you can just throw out a relief pitcher and get 2 studs and still kind of get some solid bats. But scarier fade. Would you rather fade Strasburg, Price, one of those 2, or fade the bats in Milwaukee, Colorado, Oakland? Which is more scary to you?
I think fading the pitchers is scarier. I mean, the problem is if Colorado or Milwaukee ends up going off and you don't have them, you are not going to win any GPPs. That's just kind of a fact. Pitchers rarely, I guess, at least as far as tournaments, put you completely out of the running. Normally, you can get a couple guys that approximate value, but if you miss a couple guys that double dong or a team that goes completely off, you're out of GPPs more or less. No matter who you have a pitcher. So I think tournaments there's certainly merit to going for the bats. In cash games, though, I think you have to take some of these pitchers who are in great spots.
Yeah, I agree. Tournaments, I think it's a really good spot to go cheap on tournaments as far as starting pitchers. And those bats, if they explode out there in Colorado, I believe it's a 10.5 over under. And Milwaukee, excellent offense. Two terrible pitchers, basically. I mean, don't sleep on Oakland. There's a lot of great bats going on tonight, and I guess we'll get to those shortly. As far as pitchers, by the way, here's an argument for David Price if you want one. He's going to go deeper in the game. Him and Hamels, like the two guys, they'll go 130 pitches, 120 pitches. Steven Strasburg, you'll see, sometimes he only goes like 80, 85, maybe 90. They baby him a little bit, so he's going to maybe get one or two innings less. Does that concern you at all, or you don't seem to care?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. I think Price is right up there with Strasburg. On FanDuel where the win is so important, the Rays are actually bigger favorites than the Nationals are. The Rays get to face Cosart and the Astros, so a good spot for them. And I think Price has a lot of K upside tonight. He's got some downside. He has been home run prone this year. I don't expect that to continue, but guys like Chris Carter, George Springer, Altuve can hit lefties. Fowler's having a decent season. Yeah, Dominguez. So they do have some power there. They could run into a couple, but we've seen Price give up, I think 2-3 home runs in a game and still have a monster game. So you're right about Price. He does go deep in the game. We've seen Strasburg come out a couple times, right around 90 pitches when he's pitching well. So that's always frustrating. Not really a worry for Price. Pitching in the American League certainly helps that. And I see the merit for Price. I can't go against my boy Strasburg tonight.
Yeah, if he finds out, you guys are done. That's it. All right, so we talked about Price. Price and Strasburg. Let's talk about some other guys. Some guys that are down a little bit cheaper. I think James Shields is really cheap on Draft Street today, just over 16K. I like Jamie Garcia. I think he's really in a good spot. And Garrett Richards. Talk about those three for me.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with any of those guys. You're right about James Shields. That's about the best price you'll see on him. Garrett Richards, another guy that has a ton of upside, a lot of K upside. Texas, most of their good bats besides Chu are right-handed, and he's always got that big game in him. So I don't mind either of those guys. I think there's other guys. Jaime Garcia for the Cardinals been pitching well, big favorite tonight, and and the guys in San Diego, always options. I think that actually has the lowest total of the night. So Dan Herron and Ian Kennedy, I wouldn't hate on either of those guys either.
Yeah, it's a 6.5 over/under actually out there in San Diego, and it doesn't speak so much to the pitchers. They're competent pitchers, but it speaks also to the bats. Horrible bats in San Diego, horrible bats in Seattle, and like James Shields has a nice matchup as well. Yeah, wait, hold on, I'm confusing the games. San Diego and LA. I don't know why I'm mixing those games up. It's Los Angeles. They actually have pretty competent bats, but San Diego's a big ballpark, and the over/under is 6.5, so it's worth noting. I think of those two, I feel like I would take, I don't know, I feel like I like Kennedy over Herron. I think he looks better this year if you have to pick. What about Matt Latos? At home, bad ballpark, but he's certainly done well there throughout his career. But he's got Toronto, who's going to be losing their DH. 16K is a pretty fair price. Looked okay in his first start coming back from off the DL. Not for a cash game, but for a tournament, it's a pretty fair price because he's got upside with those Ks.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it for a tournament. I do think he'll be overlooked tonight, but I don't love the ballpark there. Certainly Toronto, even with their DH, without their DH, a daunting team to face. How many pitches he threw in that first game? Is he kind of back and full? I haven't really looked into him much.
I believe he only went like 6 innings, and I want to say it was 80-ish, somewhere in the 80s.
Yeah. So that's somewhat worrisome to me. You mentioned Price might get up, 110, 120 pitches. Latos I don't think will go much over 100, if that. So I don't think I'll be going with Latos tonight, but I certainly think it will be kind of an off-the-wall play.
So if we're going to play some cheapies on Draft Street, if we're going to try to, I feel comfortable with Jaime Garcia at 14 and change, but if any of these guys, there's a lot of landmines out there. Any of these guys at 7, 8, 10, 11, 12K, does anybody do anything for you? Anybody worth a look? I'm struggling. Maybe Kuroda at 11 and change, not exactly the best matchup, hasn't been good all year, but the price is right. He's shown it in the past. He's been pretty competent, but there's really not a lot to pick from if you're going to scrape the barrel.
No, I'm not really seeing anything I like down here. If I had to go with one of these guys, I actually think it would be Colementer,
Ooh.
Josh Colementer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I said ooh, not who.
Oh yeah. He's had some good games before. He is much better against right-handed bats, and obviously the Giants kind of heavily right-handed. But that said, I don't plan to roster him at all tonight. He's just kind of my favorite of the crappy pitchers at the bottom of the barrel.
You know what? If I'm gonna pick one, I'm gonna go get really dirty and pick Ricky Nolasco at 9.6K. How about that?
Yeah, I don't hate on that either. I could see the merit to that. I think he's pitched a little bit better lately.
Yeah, and I think he pitched. Was it last game? He was pitching really good, and then it just he had like a 3-run homer or so in the 5th or 6th inning. I think he was pitching a shutout. He has his moments, and Chicago strikes out a ton. I believe they lead the league in strikeouts. At least they did at one point not too long ago. So there is some upside there, and really all you want of the guy is like 5, 6, maybe 7 points or so. And if he has a really strong game, he's got 10-point potential. Maybe not for your cash games, but for a tournament as a third starting pitcher, sure, why not?
Yeah, and you mentioned Nolasco. If you look at his game log, he has turned it around a little bit lately. Last 4 games, he's had hard opponents at New York, Milwaukee, at Toronto, at Detroit. So that's a pretty tough 4-game stretch, and he's struck out 3, 7, 6, and 5 in those 4 games. Looks like he's picking it up a little bit. Does have a little bit of upside. And White Sox, they can strike out a fair bit. I actually like a lot of the White Sox bats, but I do think Nolasco is a reasonable play at that price tag.
The chat is absolutely killing Nolasco. He's going to get drubbed. Abreu's going to hit 2 dongs. I'm not saying it's for your cash game. You got to look at the price, and you got to play the price. And if there is an unlimited salary cap, by all means, I'm not starting Ricky Nolasco. But you got to make these things fit somehow. And if you want to play some guys out in Colorado and some guys in Oakland, these are the things you got to do. So close your eyes when you're clicking his name, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Henderson Alvarez, he's got 3 complete game shutouts at home. He's facing the Mets. He's got his ERA is insane. I know you don't care for ERA, but let's just say his stats have been a lot better at home, and he's facing the Mets, who are not very good. The price is 15.7. I don't really love that price on DraftStrader, which is a little bit cheaper. Is there anybody else, any interest there? Anybody else you want to throw out before I move on?
No, I actually like Alvarez quite a bit. Maybe not so much on Draft Street, but on DraftKings, he's got a really nice price tag, and I'll be targeting him there in my GPPs. Ideal matchup here. He's been pitching better. He's kind of been improving as the year goes on. Still a young pitcher, just 24. He does, look to have pretty good stuff, at least on paper. Pretty good fastball. His curveball can move. He's got a changeup. And the Mets, not going to strike fear into anyone. So I don't mind Alvarez at all there. I think, he's a good play on DraftKings and a sneaky play on Draft Street and even FanDuel.
He's a pitch-to-contact guy. He had like 7 or 8 hits and a complete game shutout in like 83 pitches or something like that a couple of starts ago. It was ridiculous. And a few years ago when he was in Toronto, obviously different ballpark, different league, he was getting absolutely pummeled. He was getting shellacked, giving up dongs all over the place. And when he was a part of that Jose Reyes trade, I was like, okay, we didn't really get anything back. This guy's terrible. And he's actually turned into a decent, competent pitcher, like a late 3, a 4 in a starting lineup, something like that, starting rotation. Yep. He seems relatively competent, and he's much better than I thought he would be, to be honest. Question in the chat about rostering a relief pitcher tonight, and I think you got to feel this one since you're the Ronald Belisario. You know all about throwing out two stud pitchers, and then is Ronald Belisario in play tonight, or another relief pitcher of your choice?
He's always in play. He's the man. No, Nadi asks, can you win a GPP with a relief pitcher on Draft Street? And I will say that yes, you can. I actually won the very same GPP that's going tonight on Draft Street, the $22 qualifier to their $2 million baseball championship with Ronald Belisario, the closer for who's he close for? The White Sox?
The White Sox, yes.
I don't even know. That game ended up getting postponed, but I managed to win anyway. So yes, definitively I can say you can win a GPP on Draft Street with a relief pitcher, and they don't even need to be eligible to play in the game.
No, not at all. If you are going to pick one, though, why did Sean Doolittle not pitch last night? Did he pitch 3 or 4 games in a row? I'm looking for a GPP.
He did, yeah.
Okay, so he had the night off. He's not injured or anything, right? Okay, so he pitched the 17th and the 18th, but he didn't pitch the 19th. Okay, so assuming he's healthy, I like Doolittle at his price. If you're going to throw out a relief pitcher, Trevor Rosenthal, I have no problem with him versus the Phillies.
Yep.
You want to look for a closer that's their team's supposed to win, and kind of a low over under, something like that. And those two kind of jump out for me. I don't mind Steve Cishek either. There's another guy I'll throw out for you.
Yeah, Rosenthal I think is my favorite, the guy I'm going after. And definitely a night where I think there's some merit to rostering a relief pitcher in GPPs. I just mentioned the qualifier on Draft Street that I won. Same thing's running tonight. Right now it's 738 of 1750. The night I won it last week, I believe it got to like 1025 out of 1750, so a ton of overlay. And if you like GPPs, if you like going for a big $1 million first place prize, I don't think there's anywhere better to put your $22 tonight than on Draft Street in that $22 queue. If you want to do that, I would strongly advise you to stack up 2 teams on Draft Street. I really think that's the way to go. They heavily weight RBIs and runs over there. They're worth 150% of a single, where on DraftKings, they're worth like 75% of a single. So really important to get the correlation plays, with kind of 4 batters in a row. I think that's pretty vital to winning big Draft Street tournaments.
Yes, and I would be remiss if I didn't see Ducky's pandering in the chat. Ducky's Tournament of Shames tournament is out there. There's the link. Join it. I believe it's $12 now. And this week, I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but this week's shaming, the last 2 people, you have to put your photo on a jib jab and sing like "I got you, babe." Did you read this?
That's kind of a harsh shaming there.
Is that harsh? And who gets to play the Sunny part? Who gets to play the Cher part? Do you know who Sunny and Cher are? I probably should ask that. Or Beavis and Butthead. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I know who those are. That's one of the few of your culture references that I've gotten.
Well, you didn't know who Bette Midler was, so I don't know exactly where you are.
I still don't.
You still don't. You're gonna Google her one of these days. I'm gonna get you one of her greatest hits DVDs or something like that. But I should tell you, you're talking about the DSBC. They've changed it up as far as if you don't finish first, if you finish like 60th, 70th, they used to give out tickets to the next contest. Now they're actually paying out cash. So some people, I guess, were complaining about that. They went ahead and fixed it, and now they're paying cash out instead of tickets to the next contest or whatever it may be. All right, let's move on to catcher. Tell me your top catcher of the evening.
Well, I'm going to be targeting Coors Field. I'll go with Lucroy in a close race against Will and Rosario. Rosario, though, $2K cheaper. I think he's probably my favorite guy, the guy that I might have the most of.
Yeah, I like the Baby Bull, too. We should mention, I guess we've gone this far in the show. I don't know how we haven't mentioned it yet. Marco Estrada has given up 23 home runs this year. That's not very good. It's not going to help that he's pitching in Coors today, and I'm pretty sure he has reverse splits, at least to some extent. Will Rosario, he absolutely pummels lefties, but I see no reason why he can't dong tonight off the righty. He's one of many Rockies we'll be suggesting. Obviously, pretty much all the Rockies will be in play tonight. Like we said, 10 over under in that game, 10.5. So the Baby Bull, and he's like 5K, he's 5.1K. So yeah, and Lucroy on the other end, I feel like that's more of a tournament play because I don't see anybody paying up for him because there's so much value at catcher.
Oh, Dean.
Look at that! No, what do you mean? It's 7.3, which is a fair price. But
you don't think anyone's going to pay up for Lucroy tonight?
Not in cash games. Right. I will wager right now less than 10%. Jonathan Lucroy on Draft Street.
All right,
cash games.
You have a bet, good sir.
How much higher could I have gone? Damn.
Well, that's
15, 20?
You put it out there. I accepted, and we've got a big pile of doubloons on it. Jonathan Lucroy, more than 10%, and whatever. What's the big cash game on one of the $11 double ups? We'll say.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, I'm in one of the $11 double ups, and okay, I will show that to you. Okay, there you go. That's our bet. Okay, but here's the reason why. Here's my reasoning. Derek Norris is 5.4K. He's got an amazing matchup tonight at home versus Joe Saunders. He absolutely annihilates lefties. You get to a 2K savings. Brian McCann he's less than 5K at home. Chris Iannetta. How do you not like Chris Iannetta tonight? 4.3K. Come on. These guys are great.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see the merit to saving at catcher tonight. A lot of good options, like you mentioned. I like all the guys you mentioned, but I still think people are going to be on Lucroy and the rest of the Brewers. So it'll be over 10%. I mean, I agree with you that probably not the way I'll go in cash games, but definitely some people will.
And I feel that Devin Mesoraco is 4.8K. There's 2 replacement pitchers tonight. Liam Hendricks is pitching for Toronto instead of R.A. Dickey, and Brad Mills and his $1. Milwaukee did he come from? They're $1. Their net, their whatever. They have $1 less out of their pocket. He cost $1. Brad Mills. How good could he possibly be? That's how much he was sold for.
He was really sold for $1? No, I wasn't aware.
Yeah, he was sold for $1. I mean, what do you think his ego is right now?
Well, he's in the major league, so I bet he's doing all right.
All right, yeah, no, but just $1. I mean, at least make it like 6 or so. Make it respectable. But yeah, so the Oakland A's purchased his contract for $1, and he'll be facing. Wait, is that? Yeah. Why am I getting so confused with starting pitchers today? That is
the Shrooms, dude. It's the Shrooms.
Yeah, I think he's pitching in place of Jesse Chavez. We weren't kidding about the Shrooms. They're really happening. They have officially kicked in because
these were some strong ones today. I mean, I'm always a little buzzed on the show, but damn, these are some good stuff.
Yeah, we probably chose poorly, but it's gonna be good. It's gonna look good.
It's Friday. It's Friday, Dean.
There you go. All right. I make no apologies. I regret nothing.
That's right.
So Mesoraco is 4.8K. Come on. I mean, there's so many good catcher options, and that's my argument for nobody's going to pay up for Lucroy in a cash game. Tournament, by all means, unleash him.
Yeah, chat's agreeing with me. We got Britt Devine saying 23% for Lucroy. I don't think it'll be that high. I'll go with 17%, but it will definitely be over 10%.
All right. What are we betting again? The Blooms?
The Blooms, yeah. Old Crazy Gaby classic.
Yeah, I still. By the way, you owe me some from last week. Whatever it was, you trashed Longoria. You said Longoria is as good as Don Kelly. I don't know if you recall that.
Oh, I remember.
I don't know what kind of shrooms you were on that day, but that was a poor call.
Yeah, he did strike out his first 2 at bats, and then what did he do? He got a double or something.
Something like that. It was like 2.5 points, and third baseman were terrible that day. So by default, he was the best third baseman.
I still think I was sort of right.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Yeah, you were probably sort of right. But okay, first baseman, lots of good first basemen today as well. Jeez. Okay, so I guess we have to mention it. Goldie versus Tim Lincecum. What is he like? Seven home runs, like 25 at bats, 15 for 24, something silly. He's really cheap actually on Draft Street. Other spots, no thank you, probably not. Maybe for tournaments, but 7.8K is very fair. No.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. I mean, that BVP, I think that's probably the craziest. BVP split that there is out there. Everyone seems to know it. If you're on Twitter, you've seen it a million times today. Let's talk about ownership percentage for Goldschmidt in double ups and GPPs, not just on Draft Street but everywhere. Do you think he'll be one of the highest owned players of the night?
Not on FanDuel. He's too expensive there.
Yeah, 5.3K there. I still think he'll be popular.
Sure.
Yeah, but interesting spot there. I almost just sat the day out. I was like, I'm kind of a BVP hater, don't really buy into it. But I'm like, well, I can't really fade Goldschmidt. But if I play him, that means I'm buying into the BVP, so maybe I just won't play today. But then I realized that I have to play every day, and here I am.
Yeah, you can't help yourself. You're a DGen just like myself.
Yeah, I can't possibly sit a day out. I just can't do it.
We're not taking I know STL's taking a little break. We can't do that. We're not. No. We can't pull back. We're all in. So, all right. So, if not Goldie, ownership percentage on Goldie and cash game on Draft Street, I'll say about 35%. Somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe 40%. Because there's a lot of good first basemen out there for a tournament. Probably about 30% as well. Just because the price is pretty tasty. It's not all that prohibitive. So, would you agree with those numbers, or would you say they're higher?
I think that sounds about right. They might be a little bit higher. I mean, if you had to guess just fantasy output, he's priced pretty close to Justin Morneau. Obviously in Coors Field against Estrada. Who do you think will have the better game, Goldschmidt or Morneau?
I think Goldschmidt will have the better game, 68 times out of 100.
I didn't ask you for a percentage, but okay. So you think Goldschmidt has a better game. I think I would actually take Morneau there, but, you're more of a BVP guy than I am.
No, first of all, no. Don't put that on me. I love that. That's like the biggest accusation. Nobody wants to be accused of that. I don't like BVP. I don't look at it. I swear. I read it someplace else, and I looked at the splits. Give me my respect when I win a tournament with Goldie.
It's to the point now where it's cool to actually believe in BVP because everybody hates it. There was a time when you were the contrarian guy by not ever believing in BVP, but now everybody knows about Tom Tango's the book, that there's no predictive power there. And now guys like Stevie and Tommy can't shut up about how they actually like BVP.
Exactly. Okay, so if we're not playing Goldie, I love Morneau as well. Joey Votto is just over 7K, makes for a nice cash game play. Trying to see who else. Matt Adams is still pretty cheap, just over 6K. I don't mind him. Miguel, of course, Miguel Cabrera, tough matchup, but he's less than 9K. He's cheaper than he normally is. Kluber is pretty tough pitcher. Any other guys you're looking at are just kind of like whatever team you're stacking, you're throwing that first baseman in, and your cash game is probably going to be Goldie, if not Goldie, Morneau, who's actually more expensive than Goldie on Draft Street.
Yeah, I like all those top guys. There are cheap options if you want to go that way. I mean, super cheap, bottom of the barrel, literally on Draft Street. Guzman against Price. Price been giving up a lot of home runs, 2.5K. Guzman's got power. Kind of a weird, sneaky GPP play there, in my opinion. Nick Swisher, 3.6K against Porcello. That's a pretty good matchup. So first base, obviously a position where there's a lot of options. Personally, I think I'll be paying for one of the top guys. A Goldschmidt, Morneau. I could see even maybe a Joey Votto, but I definitely like the top guys tonight.
Adrian Gonzalez is 5.4K. It's another one that we pointed out. Way too cheap. Big ballpark, but he actually excelled in that ballpark when he was a Padre. So, but again, the over/under in that game is 6.5. Don't expect a lot. He certainly can dong, but I don't expect a lot of runs that game. And I guess Mike Napoli against the $1 starter that is Brad Mills at 5.5K. I don't mind that, but yeah, first base is loaded, and that's okay. Let's move on because we're kind of we're falling behind in time for whatever reason. We're talking too much about the Blooms. Give me your keystone position top play of the night.
Kind of a tough position tonight, but I will go with my boy, my hometown pick, Brian Dozier against old Hector Noisy, however you say it. Noisy? I don't know.
Why do you like Dozier tonight? Why is he your top guy?
Power and speed, Dean. Power and speed. He's got 15 home runs, 15 stolen bases, kind of quietly having a monster season. You do prefer him against left-handed pitchers, but Hector Noisy bad enough. Game's got a high total. I think he could be in for a big night. And just a guy that, especially in GPPs, people don't really pay for. His ownership percentage is low, basically on every site, every night. And, if you look at his statistics, his underlying peripherals, he passes every test there is. And, there's no one, basically, that's combining power and speed like he is. So I'm pretty high on him. And, it's always fun to get a guy that oftentimes less than 10% owned.
Yeah, I agree with that. He wasn't really on my radar tonight. I do prefer him against lefties, but you're right. In a tournament, nobody's going to play him. And I believe he's more expensive than pretty much everybody else, so that's another reason why nobody's going to play him. We're bearing the lead here on BBP. Robinson Cano. Have you seen his BBP against James Shields? Have you noticed that?
I have not. Like I mentioned, you're a much bigger fan than I am, so why don't you tell me what it is?
I waved the flag. 32 for 81, 8 doubles, 2 triples, 4 dongs, 395 average, 1115 OPS. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yankee Stadium, though.
That is very good, but you're right. Now he's in KC. Shields still a good pitcher. I'm not buying that. And I will have 0 shares of Robinson Cano tonight.
What about the Scooter? Is he too expensive at 6.5K, assuming he leads off tonight, or is that a fair price?
No, I think that's fair, and I'm kind of hoping people will be afraid to go that way. It's Colorado. He should be leading off on the road, get a full complement of at-bats, hopefully, against old Bergman. So I really like Scooter tonight. I'm not scared off of the price. I believe his price has risen basically everywhere. I think it's up to like 3,700 on FanDuel, which is right up near the top. I think it was 4,100 on DraftKings. So you're going to have to pay for him, but I think that fact will keep some people off him. Won't be as heavily owned as he would have been. If he was still down, 3,400 on DraftKings or whatever and 4K on Draft Street, everybody would have had him. I don't think that'll be the case, so I think he's a strong play, especially in GPPs. And then the guy right below him, I think, is a really good option, Jason Kipnis against Rick Porcello.
Yeah, I like him as well. And actually, the 2 guys that I wrote up today, I haven't mentioned either one just yet. Dustin Pedroia, it's not exactly in Fenway, not exactly ideal against Oakland, but last night he donged against the lefty and Scott Kazmir, and tonight I'm picking on Brad Mills and his $1. He's facing a bad lefty tonight, 6.5K. Don't mind that price. And we've been waiting for this spot, Howie Kendrick on the cheap because he's been struggling against Joe Saunders, who's just brutally terrible. And I assume, hopefully, maybe Kendrick will be leading off. If not leading off, he'll be batting 5th. He should be in a nice spot in the lineup against a lefty. And less than 5K, just over 4.92, with $4,920, to be precise. That's a pretty sweet value for me.
Yeah, can't argue with that at all. I think it brings up tonight's a really interesting GPP night for me, with some clear-cut, top pitching options, and then obviously a lot of people are going to be on the Rockies game, rightfully so. It does have the highest over/under as it should, but I'm wondering, I'm trying to get a read on the industry and how many people are going to be on that game compared to other stacks that are in good spots. I think the White Sox and the Twins are in a pretty good spot. The Angels I like a lot. The A's right-handers are looking good. So it's a night where, if you can accurately gauge that everybody is going to be on the Brewers and the Rockies and, swerve to one of these other teams that's still projected to have a very good night, just not quite as good, you could really reap the benefits.
Cincinnati, sneaky stack for you. There's one for you. I like Cincinnati tonight. Oakland, not sneaky at all, but of course Oakland's always in play for a stack. And the other side, I don't mind Boston either. There's a couple of teams that I'll be looking at as well. Speaking of Oakland, we're moving down to third base. We've been waiting for this. Donaldson, they price on Draft Street. Part of their pricing is based on your recent performance, and that would explain the other part of it is matchup as well. So Donaldson's got a great matchup at home versus a lefty. He matches lefties, we know that. But he's just over 6.9K. He's getting that discount because he's been pretty terrible of late. Is that your favorite third baseman? Does he get the edge over Aramis Ramirez?
Yeah. I think I do prefer him slightly over Aramis, just given that, he does have that lefty matchup that he thrives on, whereas Aramis does have to face a right-hander. Certainly close for me, but, I do think Donaldson is the better talent at this point. Certainly will have better numbers at the end of the year, in my opinion. And I do prefer him slightly. I'm wondering, who do you think will be more popular tonight among the two?
On Draft Street, it's definitely going to be Donaldson because he's less than $200. And sometimes people will just click for the cheaper guy. And I just feel like he's got a better matchup as well. And granted, he's not in Coors Field, but I'm taking Donaldson on my cash games if all things work out the way I want them to.
Yeah, no problem there. I do prefer him as well. But people are definitely drawn to Coors Field. So it's hard to underrate that factor as far as projecting ownership percentages across the industry.
On the cheap, or not on the cheap, maybe for a cash game, this is actually a pretty cheap price. Matt Carpenter, cash game du jour, play of the day, just over 5.2K, not going to dong for you, but usually gets a couple, does something, gets a hit, gets a run, gets a double, something along those lines. And I'm not exactly afraid of A.J. Burnett, so I think he's in a reasonable spot. If you're going to punt, David Freese versus a lefty at home, 3.8K. At home is not exactly a great thing, but Freese can get a hold of it. He can dong off Joe Saunders. I don't see any problem there. And Manny Machado is 3.9K. He's been terrible, but is he that terrible?
No, he's not that bad. And I'm with you. I think those guys are in decent spots. Freese, I think, is a good play. Saunders, really one of the worst pitchers in all of baseball against right-handers. Freese has proven over the course of his career that he can hit them. Not been good lately, but I think this is a really good matchup for him. I'm really high on the Angels right-handers. I think they will fly just a little bit under the radar. Certainly not completely, but guys like Freese, Pujols, Trout, Kendrick, all in really good spots tonight. Iannetta.
Crone,
yes, Mega Crone.
Yeah, throw him out there as well. And also David Wright is still he's still priced based on that big slump he had, even though he's donged twice in his last 3 games. David Wright is just over 4K. We like to unleash him against lefties, but not the best ballpark in the world. We both kind of like Henderson Alvarez, but just over 4K. He's like the 30th ranked third baseman or something like that. It's really silly. He's way down there, so I have no problem with him either.
Yeah.
No?
I think Alvarez gives up very few home runs in general, and especially few at home run and against right-handers. So I'd have to double check there, but I think Wright is extremely unlikely to hit a home run tonight.
Yeah, well, Alvarez, like I said before, he gave up dongs a couple years ago, but the park switch has certainly helped him out. He's actually become a better pitcher. He's not that old, but still, somebody of Wright's caliber, his potential, his skill, I still think it's too cheap, but it's not the best spot in the world. I agree with that. Anybody else at third we should talk about, or shall we move on to Troy Tulowitzki in the shortstop position?
Let's go over to Tulo Town.
All right. We don't want to. There's only so many Tulos we can say, and there's a quota, and we have to save a bunch of them for the 5:30 show. I'm guessing CSU's on today, so try to use. Try to say how good Troy Tulowitzki is in as few Atulos as possible.
Mr. Troy is facing a pitcher who has given up 23 home runs in Coors Field. He's the top shortstop tonight by a long, large, giant margin.
And just for fun, we'll throw in his average, which is absolutely silly. His home average, we're talking about T-squared here. His home average is 477 with a 1.422 OPS at Coors. And it's June 20th. It's not like we're a month into the season. It's absolutely silly. And, oh, by the way, I'm not sure if he said it once or twice or 3 times, but it bears repeating. Marco Estrada has given up 23 dongs this year, more than anybody else. So if you can fit him in your lineup, by all means, do your best. Try to.
Can you talk to me about batting average and how it's calculated? I'm not familiar with the statistic myself.
Yeah, I know. It's back in the day. You know who loved batting average? Bette Midler. She was a big batting average fan.
You and batting average. You could, ride off gracefully into the sunset.
You know what? I threw an OPS as well just to appease you.
OPS, Dean. Come on. It's not 2003.
You frown on OPS? Are you serious? how smug could you be? Who doesn't like OPS?
It's just getting a little dated.
All right, I'm sorry. What would you prefer? Just so I know for future. Just you want the what do you want from me?
Oh, you wouldn't have heard of it, so I'm not going to bring it up here.
You want Sierra? Is that what you want?
Oh, well, Dean, come on. It's not 2010 either.
Enlighten me. Enlighten the people.
It stays a secret.
Ah, jeez. You know what? One of these days, I'm gonna make Fangraphs my homepage and just study it for hours upon hours upon hours, and I'm gonna impress you one of these days.
Everyone knows about Fangraphs. I've moved on from that.
Where should I go? Help me out.
I told you. I'm not telling you, Dean.
Well, I thought we were friends. What's going on here?
I know you need some help, but you're not going to get it from me.
Well, I'm going to have to go elsewhere, and one of these days I'm going to impress you one way or another. Okay, if you're not playing T-squared, where are we going? Xander Bogaerts against the lefty. He's actually a step back a little bit against lefties because it was a small sample size and he was mashing them, but still, I don't mind him for 5.1K. Jed Lowry is probably more of a cash game play. He's just over 5K in the same game. Gene Segura in Coors. I don't know. Where's the lineup? Where's he batting today? He could be batting 8th or 1st for all I know.
Yeah, that makes a big difference for him. If he's, up near the top of the lineup, he's an excellent play. Still a good play at the bottom, but yeah, he is batting 8th today, so that kind of sucks. I still think he's a decent play.
Yeah, I just hate when they put him there, but I guess he's still in play. Sure, why not?
Dean, this reminds me. I hate to cut you off, but I'm in this. I don't know if you've played the Fantasy Elite app. That Grant Girton, I think he's the CEO of. They're having an Elite Cup right now, so it's like a World Cup style. Like a $250 buy-in, and then winner gets a big prize. Cool tournament, cool app. But the reason I bring it up is because you actually get points for at-bats on that site. So yeah, so it would be right up your alley because I know you hate taking any player who could possibly be pinch hit for at any time.
I do. I love my at-bats, and it's funny because I was approached. I was asked to join, and I wanted to join, but I'm on Team Google. I'm on Team Google, so I can't play along, unfortunately. If that app ever gets available to the masses,
you gotta get the free iPad with the big deposit. That's what I did because I'm
not a baller like you. Come on, I'm small time.
Come on, don't sell yourself short here. We know you're rolling in it.
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, I told him. I said, listen, maybe when football comes around, but I kind of regret it, to be honest, because I saw everybody talking about it on Twitter, and I was like, oh, that would have been fun to join. And a lot of the people in there I know, so I'm like, yeah, I would love to have taken you on because we've had a fun little history of our $5 head-to-head, so we could have upgraded that a little bit. But maybe next time. I definitely I'm intrigued now. I'm kind of a little disappointed that I'm not in there. But all right, other shortstops. Anybody else we should throw out there?
No, I mean, I think you want to get Tulo if you can pay for him. Certainly going to be heavily owned, but should be worth it tonight. I don't mind Jose Reyes, but the price is too close to Tulo probably for me to pay for him. Basically anyone besides Tulo I think is going to be somewhat of a contrarian play tonight. Yeah,
well, what do you think his ownership's going to be tonight? Cash game and I guess tournament on Draft Street. How about that? He's 9.7. It's not exactly the greatest price, but you can fit him in.
Yeah, I think he'll be, 40, 50% in both.
That sounds about right. All right, outfield. Speaking of prices, speaking of guys that have prohibitive prices. I really, I mean, obviously, I really like Mike Trout today. But if you've been his last 15 games on Draft Street, I actually wrote this down. Last 15 games, I know, close your eyes, close your ears. His batting average is 385. He's got 5 dongs. I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't know what his Sierra is. He's got 5 dongs, 14 runs, 16 RBI, and 4 stolen bases, which adds up to an average of 7.77 Draft Street points. That's per game. If you can get 7.77 Draft Street points out of 9.5 salary, yeah, I'll take that. I'm perfectly fine with that. So I don't. And also the matchup at home. I guess at home's not exactly a huge thing, but Joe Saunders, we've been beating him up all show. So why not continue to do so? I like Mike Trout, and I feel like everybody's eyes are on Coors. And oh, by the way, Mike Trout is the best player in baseball.
Yeah, I actually think he's my top overall play tonight. I will say more points, more fantasy points for Trout than Tulo on every site. So he's my favorite. Saunders is that bad, and Trout has been significantly better against left-handed pitching this year. So definitely super high on Trout. I think he's in for a big game, but a lot of these outfielders, you got to love Braun and Gomez for Milwaukee. Of course, the lefties, especially from Colorado, Blackman, Dickerson in great spots as well. So a lot of places you can go here. Trout's my number one. I'm with you there. Let's talk about some cheap guys. We've mentioned a lot of the studs that we want. Who are the cheap guys on Draft Street that you're targeting to fit in guys like Tulo and Trout?
Some cheapies I like. Jay Bruce is 5.3K. That's too cheap. Shin-Soo Choo is much cheaper than he normally is. He's 5.5K. Not the greatest matchup in the world. I kind of like Garrett Richards tonight, but sometimes you just got to play the price. If Parra is leading off, he's 4.6K. I don't know if Arizona, they probably have not released their lineup just yet, but I don't mind him. We have Johnny Gomes, Versa lefty. Again, picking on that $1 lefty. He mashes lefties. He's not looked very good, but his price looks right. Just over 5K. I don't mind Johnny Gomes. Those are some of my cheapies so far. I haven't seen anything else pop up in the lineups just yet. Anybody jump out to you as far as cheap outfielders?
I mean, there's not a lot of these guys that are cheap. I'm not in love with. I think Michael Bourne's in a pretty good spot against Porcello. 4.4K. But at least on Draft Street, there's not a ton here to fall in love with. I think George Springer is the guy I'm looking at least for tournaments.
Yeah.
On teams that are not rostering Price at 5K. Can certainly take Price deep. Price might not be into the whole matchup. That's just a great price for him. And I'm wondering, I think most people will just completely write off every Astro. So could be a kind of a sneaky play there.
Maybe Desmond Jennings or Arcia right around 5K. Those guys can be in play as well. Here's the other issue I was talking about. There's very little value, not just on Draft Street, but all across the industry. So that's the problem with trying to pay up for a starting pitcher and get some action in Coors or any of those big bats that we're talking about, like a Mike Trout. There's really few value plays that make sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of a day where all the good bats, are in great spots, and some of the traditional value bats aren't on the right side of their platoon split. So it makes for some difficulty building lineups. You can't get in everybody you want. You're going to have to fade players that scare the crap out of you. That they're going to hurt you in a big way. So definitely a day if you like playing GPPs. A day to put in multiple lineups. Maybe a day if you have a percentage of your budget that you allocate toward DFS, which you should. Maybe a day to reduce, your buy-ins to big tournaments, to big cash games, and spread out your action among smaller tournaments. Just because there's so many guys that could have big nights tonight.
Question in the chat. This guy does not respect my opinion. He's asking you specifically, which is fine.
Of course.
I don't take it personal. Draft sheet. Best GPP picture. Who do you got?
A little bit hard to answer, just given that there's no site specific here, but I think my two favorite guys, beyond Strasburg, of course, are Jaime Garcia and Henderson Alvarez.
Yeah, I know he didn't ask me, but I'm going to chime in because I'm feeling left out. I would have said Jaime Garcia as well. That would have been the guy I was talking about.
Yep.
Let's see if there's any other questions in the chat. We're creeping up on 5:30, and like I said, I believe it's CSU. CSU and STL. They're warming up in the bullpen, so they'll be on in a couple minutes or so, give or take. assuming that, well, hopefully their Hangouts work, because we're having some issues with Skype. Any other questions? Overbay, he's cheap on FanDuel. Any interest on Lyle Overbay?
Sure. He's playing in Coors Field against a righty. Can't hate it.
Buster Posey and Miguel Cabrera, or Will and Rosario and Teixeira? That seems like a trick question. Wait, that's the question?
What is it, Posey and
Miguel, or Will and Rosario and Teixeira? That seems too easy. What am I missing?
First one, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, he's asking for GPP, I guess.
It's a trap.
I think it's a trap. Yes. I don't like Teixeira. I refuse to play him unless he's like dirt cheap. I'm not playing Teixeira. The wrist injury scares me. There's a question about. What's that?
You get scared so easily.
I do. I'm very easily scared. Yeah, I'm afraid of spiders, arachnophobia.
Pinch hitters.
I'm frightened of pinch hitters. Oh, frightened.
They keep you up at night.
Oh, here's a serious question. Is Jose Molina a stud or what?
Yes, a stud.
There you go, absolutely. He's easily the studliest of the Molina brothers.
You toss and turn at night, can't fall asleep because you're envisioning John Jaso pinch hitting for Derek Norris, aren't you?
This is true. If not John Jaso, you're going to have maybe Jaso's in the lineup and Derek Norris in the lineup as well. Like Jaso's DHing. Oh, he's safe. No, here comes Kyle Blanks right off the bench, and it just bothers me. But I'm talking to somebody. We're working it out. I have a therapist these days, and we're making progress. I have rostered John Jaso recently. I have rostered Derek Norris, so we're starting to get over it. But I guess we shouldn't elaborate because it is 5:30 and we have to get out of here. So anything you want to say to the people before we leave?
No, just good luck to everyone. A lot of big qualifiers out there. Hopefully someone can take it down. And a good show coming up next with CSU and STL. I'm sure they'll have a lot of interesting things to say about Troy Tulowitzki. So make sure to tune in for that one. Yeah, and by the way, we didn't mention weather at all. Don't take our advice on weather necessarily. Use your own little weather radar. And hey, Roto-Grinders, we have a forum. Kevin Roth, he writes an article for us, and it'll go up in the forum at some point if it's not up there already. He'll elaborate on any sort of games that there's some weather interest, and always, stay tuned to that right up to game time because weather changes. So do your best to guess on that, and he'll do his best to steer you in the right direction. That said, it is 5:31, so we have to go. We got to get out of here. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good luck in your games tonight, and holler.